You're watching Beyond 100 Days with Nifemi Oguntoye. The Director General of the Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency says domestication of the National Startup Initiative by 36 states and FCT will help bridge the knowledge gap in the digital ecosystem. We were speaking at the Startup Policy Development Dialogue in Enugu. I'm joined now by Special Advisor to the Governor of Enugu State on SME and digital economy. Thank you so much for joining us on the program this evening. I'd like us to begin quickly on what your thoughts are as to what you consider the impact of this controversial tax reforms bill on small businesses as well as low-income earners. We understand that these bills already exempt businesses with an annual turnover of 50 million naira or less from paying taxes. How do you think this exemption will affect small businesses and low-income earners? And what are the potential implications for economic growth and job creation for you?
Thank you very much for that question. You have to look at it from a two-pronged approach. Firstly, the 50 million mark, I think, is a bit too arbitrary. We have to, when you look at the SME landscape, you start from nano entrepreneurs, you go all the way up to SMEs. There are also micro enterprises. I think it needs to be a bit more segmentalized. The categories are too vast for that kind of consideration. That's the first thing I'll say. But on the flip side, if the people that are exempt for paying tax, I think it should be a bit more lower, anywhere between 10 to 15 million in terms of, their annual revenues would make more sense to me. So that you're taking into cognizance more micro enterprises and more nano enterprises. At the 50 million mark, it leaves a lot of room for manipulation. And you can also, you can also use some informal means of, taxing these businesses. For example, what we do in Enugu State, people that fall into that lower category of 10 million and below, nano enterprises, we have an informal taxing system where we give them e-tickets, and it's been quite successful. Within the first 6 months of implementation, we've been able to generate close to about 5 billion, and this is just nominal payments of 2,000 naira a month. First of all, I have to applaud the federal government, looking at some of these reforms. But the categorization, I think, is a bit too broad. It should come down a little bit to focus more on nano enterprises and micro enterprises. The 50 million mark is a bit too high, and it leaves room for manipulation.
The bills, as we understand it, aim to simplify tax obligations as well as reduce administrative burdens. But I'm just wondering how you envision this impacting the digital economy, for instance, in Enugu, particularly in terms of ease of doing business and attracting investments.
So that's the unique point now. There is a separation of SMEs and startups, right? So this will fall more with SMEs, but startups has its own categorization of how they are defined. There has to be a level of innovation that is, added into their services. What kind of innovative products are they using to deliver services to their customers? So from that standpoint, that's where the Nigerian Startup Bill comes into play. And I feel that, in 2022, when that was passed, they've done a good job in national, giving a broad framework of how that can work from a national perspective. So what each state needs to do and what Enugu State is doing right now is looking at the local nuances. What works for Enugu State is different from what works for Anambra State, different from what works for Lagos. So the worst thing you can do is just take that bill and just, copy and paste and pass it for your own state. You're not going to hit the nail on the head. What you need to do is engage your ecosystem, just like what we did over the weekend. We had members of the Enugu digital economy ecosystem, from startup founders, startup mentors, venture capital firms, financiers like the banks, academia, and all sorts, sit down on one table, and we went through the startup bill section by section, right? From the operational structure to startup labeling process. And by the way, this was in support with the NIDA and the Office of Nigerian Digital Innovation, ONDI. the training and capacity building aspect, talent development, tax and fiscal incentives, collaboration with regulators. This is what we're talking about, setting up of accelerators, incubators, and hubs, then, technology development zones. So we went through each of these aspects and how we can localize it for Enugu State, right?
Indeed.
The local nuances of what affects us is significantly different. For example, Enugu State has a 65% youth population. So we tailored a lot of what we're trying to do to be able to develop the next generation of tech talent. And for us, we've now determined that, our competitive advantage is actually with our people. So, invested in these infrastructures that will bring out the best of the best. So it was quite a fantastic program. I have to applaud the Federal Ministry of Innovation, Digital Economy and Communication, run by Bosun Tijani, and also the subsidiaries under the NIDA and the just recently set up Office of the Nigerian Digital Innovation. I think that's run by Mrs. Fabumi. They're doing a fantastic job.
Well, I guess we're going to be counting on the promises this innovation comes with and see how that impacts positively on startups in the coming months. But this bill that we're talking about, another interesting proposal here is the creation of a joint revenue board that will harmonize tax administration across federal, state, and local levels. How do you think this will affect the tax environment, for instance, in Enugu? Are there opportunities you're seeing there or challenges that you foresee can arise from this development?
So, initially the thought process was around the digital ecosystem, but if I have to put that aside, I think Enugu State is doing a fantastic job. The Executive Secretary of the Enugu State Board of Internal Revenue, Mr. Emmanuel Inamani, they've done a lot to, look at what we have in place, look at the structures we have, and be able to expand the avenues where we can realize IGR. This year, I think our IGR numbers are closer to over 150 billion, which is something quite fantastic. And for next year's budget, we're looking to double that. So for us, we already have the structures in place to harmonize with federal. It's very important to know when federal policies are put in place, they are only implemented within subnationals, and collaboration is what we are known for. So we're quite pleased with systems like this. I don't think it's too, controversial. I think you find controversy when there is no, thinking around collaboration. And the only way we can succeed from a federal and subnational standpoint is, deliberate collaboration, and we're doing that quite effectively here in Enugu State.
What do you consider the next step for Enugu? Because you are the one advising Mr. Governor on the issue of SMEs and digital economy. The next step in navigating changes brought about these controversial bills and initiatives or programs that you think must be implemented to achieve this?
Sorry, can you go over that question one more time?
Yes, I'm asking about what you consider the next step in anticipation of these bills, especially in the area of digital economy and also navigating the changes brought about by these bills in the coming days.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question. So from the domestication exercise, next step, after consolidating and having a communique of what the ecosystem wants, we're going to, now take that conversation to the House of Assembly before passing the Enugu Startup Bill, and very immediately start effecting on the key tenants in there. These are things that we're already putting in place. We have huge investments in setting up under the structure of training and capacity building. We have a standing mandate of training 30,000 youths on tech skills. We want to be known as the talent hub of the Southeast and if not Nigeria. We have collaborations with the NCC with regards to the Digital Industrial Park here in Enugu State and the Digital Bridge Institute. There's a lot we can get done there. We're in the process of setting up the Enugu Innovation and Outsourcing Hub. So for us, it's how can we train Enugu youths on, high quality tech skills,
all right,
or keep them here in Enugu State so that that earning power can increase our GDP. So we're investing in outsourcing spaces. By 18th of this month, we're going to flag off the Enugu Cafe 1, our first world-class government-supported and private sector-owned co-working space, and we'll be setting several across the state. So, this is one of many initiatives. We also have partnerships with... Sorry, go ahead. Mr.
Ariza, I think we've run out of time completely. We'll have to continue this conversation subsequently. Special advisor to the Enugu State Governor.
I hope you can invite me.
On SME. You can
invite me next time, so we can...
Yeah. This is the second interview you're getting on the same day, so there are chances they will call you again. Ariza Chilo Ofia, thank you for talking to us.